So, first of all, I'd like to welcome you all here. About half of you already know me, those of you who are doing BSc IT. Half of you doing computer forensics, investigations, or whatever the precise title, I keep forgetting exactly what it is each year, it moves gently. Welcome, and you're going to find a different way of working. I suspect you guys on forensics probably haven't actually quite worked how we're going to work. However, the good news for you is that the way that we're working, where I give you almost no answers to anything, if you ask me a question, I will reflect it back with a different question to force your thinking. We will spend a very large proportion of all of the time together discussing ideas, developing your ideas, debating ideas, and researching. It's kind of a problem-based approach to life. It's called the Socratic way of teaching rather than something called didactic teaching, where someone stands up the front with 50 slides full of text and reads them all in a very, very boring form because that lecturer knows that they are the fount of all the knowledge. Now, it turns out, and I've developed some evidence over the last 2-3 years that shows that switching from I'm teaching you the subject to teaching you how to learn and teaching you all of the skills that you need to develop interesting questions and interesting answers delivers something like 15 to 20% improvement on your grades. And the grades that these modules that I've been teaching now for the last 3 years with our new 20 credit process, where the second and third year, the externals are very happy with the assessment process and they're extremely happy with the results. I have never had the grade profile challenged. The average grade tends to be around about 73% for these two modules. And as long as you engage, there will be no failures. It is extremely unlikely that anyone will even get a third. A very small proportion of you might get a 2-2. Most of you are going to get firsts and 2 1s. If you really take advantage of all of the time we have together, if you attend all of the workshops that you've allocated yourself to on that list that's going around, where you're researching various aspects and I'm available at all times to help you with your questions and with your ideas. If you attend all of those workshops, and particularly towards Easter, just before Easter, there will be a week when there will be absolutely no seminars, no workshops. I will schedule you through my office on a 12 to 15 minute schedule, and you will bring me your best, latest, final draft of the assignment you're writing. I will mark it against the rubric guidelines that I will be publishing next week with the full assignment, and you'll submit it as a first draft or as a draft and turn it in, and I will then give you all of the full feedback there, and then you'll then have 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks even, to revise your assignment, the article, in the light of all that feedback I will be giving you, and that draft to final submission in the last week or so of term tends to be worth something between 15 and 20% improvement on your grades. So you engage with it, and I can nearly guarantee that you will get really great results. Now, the reason that we've now got a mix of the two modules, Enterprise Systems and Information Security and Assurance, is A, the numbers are not too big. B, I want you all to experience the same thing, because the basic learning materials, the workshops, the activities are identical. The only thing that is different between the two modules is the precise specification of the question between Enterprise Systems and information security and assurance, and we'll cover that in a short while. It also will give you the opportunity to cross-fertilize your thinking about the whole field of information security and assurance and enterprise systems, because they're really all the same sort of thing. There is almost no new content being taught. I will provide in the different seminar sessions a few pointers to bodies of knowledge about enterprise systems, about how they can be used to give value to businesses, to organizations, and I will also be pointing you at a few areas of interesting and important questions about security, about governance of information, and a few other things that all fit together. BSc IT have covered a lot of it last semester in their Sustainable Information Corporate Governance, and that will feed into what you're doing here. So you're going to find this really quite interesting. You're going to find it valuable for your future careers when you go out into the big wide world. Some of you I know have already got jobs lined up, others maybe not yet. But you will probably find, I know some people found that the research they did in this module, or these two modules last year, provided them with some very, very useful and interesting talking points for any interviews they have for jobs over the next 6 months. So there's a lot of value out of this, and the way that I'm running this is really to prepare you for your future careers. And so going back to what I was saying about I teach questions, not answers, if we look at the whole spectrum of what this module is covering, almost every single question that I will bring to you are the questions that people like myself and others of my colleagues, Dave Voorhis, Wayne Rippon, Kim Smith, and others, the questions that we are posing at you today to help you understand this field are the questions that we have been asking ourselves when we were in business, before we came to academia, for the last 20, 30, 40 years. The questions have not changed. The answers have, the technology has, but the questions about information governance, about information security, the value of information, the value of IT systems for businesses, those questions have never changed, but the answers are changing all the time in the light of changes to technology, changes to globalization, or the global village, all those sort of things. And as the topic of today, this year's assignment is, the Internet of Things and Big Data Analytics, yeah, it's a new topic area, a new focus, but has exactly the same questions about how do we get value, how do we keep our information safe, how do we find good evidence for a law court. All of those things, the questions are important. Now, I read a little letter to the editor a couple of days ago in a newspaper about an article that a guy, Lord Ridley, wrote about his position in the field of climate change. And he said he used to be, I think, a skeptic. He's now a lukewarm in the middle somewhere. And a scientist, an FRCP scientist, wrote about, well, the point about science is there is a right answer. He was actually wrong in this particular case because we do not actually know what the actual formulae are, the models about climate change to get to the right mathematical answer. It's just a sort of airy-fairy, fluffy, cloudy sort of range. And the point about that is that in your assignment, in your article that you're going to write, there is no right or wrong answer. What there is a really good analysis based on research, based on evidence, by linking it together logically, and coming up with, in a specific context, a good answer. Not necessarily the very, very best answer. That might take years to develop. But what I want to get from you is a good answer in the context that you have chosen, because you will be allowed to choose a context. And then I want to see the way that you think. Remember that those assessments, the articles you're writing, because they're not right or wrong, but they are a window, for me, into your head, to understand how you handle thinking, how you handle evidence, how you connect them together, and even better, how your ability to research interesting connections between areas of knowledge that maybe have not been connected together beforehand. So if you can find something nicely left field, well, that's over there for you, that no one is connected to something else, and you can show how that connection happens, and are persuasive that it is a good and a logical and a reasonable connection, that's even better. That's what I would like to count as the wow factor. Woo, never seen that connection before. That's really great. Then the consequence might be you might want to go and think about doing some research later on in your life. So that's kind of the background. Now, for those in forensics, I've been here now since 2002. Before that, I was at Rolls-Royce Aerospace across the way, across the town, for about 30 years. Did a lot of work as a sort of internal consultant between IT and the business, trying to develop interesting and valuable systems for them, giving them advice and so on. And so I've seen most parts of how business operates. So, and I also use a lovely language called SAS, which some of the BSc IT students have used, and some of them found it a magical environment for manipulating data. And it's part of where I'll be possibly for a week. Which week is it? The week before Easter, where I might be out at a conference or two relating to SAS. So that's kind of an introduction to sort of a rather different way of working, a rather different approach to life. And what I'm expecting you all to do, whether BSc IT or the forensics side, this module is your opportunity to pull together, to connect together every single module you have ever studied here at university. To bring into that as well any experiences you have from workplaces, whether it's maybe your placement year last year for those of you who did a placement year. You will have learned an awful lot of things out there, I suspect, which you may find valuable to bring into your assignment. This is what we call a capstone module, where you can bring everything together. So let's have a quick look. I'm going to show you the well, we'll have a look at enterprise systems first for, no, not that one. Must remember maths next week. There's too many people using blackboard at the moment, I reckon. Okay. Rather than give you the introduction to the module specs, I will go straight to this assignment document. How many of you actually looked in assessments for the module to have a look at the outline of the assignment? How many? A few. I did send an email around, didn't I? An announcement email suggesting you had a look at the assignment spec, didn't I? Oh, for goodness sake. Just as a matter of interest, who believes that IT is given us to improve life and the ease of doing things? Wow, you are cynical. You're also realistic, I think. When I've seen IT now since, well, I was born 2 years after the first commercial IT system was developed by the Lions Tea House chain. The Leo system, which was put together in, I think, 1953 or thereabouts. So I was born a couple of years before that. So I've seen the whole history of commercial IT. And one of the interesting things is that today's IT is more fractured, more unreliable, and more broken than I have ever seen it. And I've discussed this with people at big IBM conferences in last year and the year before when I was out in Vegas for a week at each time. I've talked to people in the UK, I've talked to people in Germany at conferences, and they all agree that they have never seen IT so unreliable, so fraught with security failures as it is today. It's unbelievable. It's causing more and more work, more and more irritation, and more stress. And last year and the year before I had, between those 2 years, something like about 20 odd undergraduate dissertations looking at the concept of technostress. And the levels of technology-induced stress by the use of ICT in their daily life, whether at work or in their private lives, the levels of stress since 1995, when it was around about 30% of respondents showed evidence of stress at a medium to a high level, has now increased to anywhere between 75 and 95% of the surveyed populations. A survey last year by SAS Inc. in the UK showed that the levels of stress in professionals doing the analytics type of job is also rising to really quite remarkably high levels. So that's an area, and there'll be some links available to you to cover some of these things. So today, the assignment, folks. Right, there's a little bit of context here. As background. No. You've all heard of the Internet of Things, I guess. Anybody who hasn't heard of the Internet of Things? Okay, well, the Internet of Things is the fact that every device in the world, whether it's a phone, smartphone, or your electricity meter, or cars with Wi-Fi connectivity for media services or data buses, and all chattering together. Your heating system at home can chatter now to your mobile phone, and when you get within 100 meters of your house, it might switch the heating on, or all sorts of things like that. All sorts of things are now busy chattering to each other. That's why we had to have IP6, because just for internet connectivity for people with, for the internet for people, we were running out of IP addresses under IPv4, so IPv6 then caused a huge explosion in the number of connected addresses that are available, almost unlimited. So there's vast amounts of devices out there, some of which we actually handle and control, and many of which are just doing their thing. Even, where is it? Wherever, is there a little device? Oh yeah, up, one of that one maybe. But somewhere there's a little gadget which checks whether we're in here, and when people aren't in here, it'll switch the lights off. And that actually can connect to somewhere else to say whether the room's occupied and so on. So we're generating staggering quantities of data. In fact, the rate of growth of data is now following Moore's law. It's doubling every 18 months. And 90% of all data that we have available to us today was generated within the last 18 to 24 months. There's an enormous amount of activity going on about smart houses and smart homes and so on, because they can make potentially make our cities safer, maybe, more environmentally sustainable, all sorts of things. With all of this data, we need a new way of handling our data and analysing it. It's called big data analytics, and there's a huge amount of work going on there. And this team last year, as in your predecessors a year ago, spent quite a lot of time in one seminar session thinking about the V's of big data. Now, traditionally over the last 5–10 years, people are looking at analytics and saying there are 4 V's of big data. The 3 that define it: ultra-high velocity, ultra-high volume, and amazing levels of variability or variation in the types of data, compared to historical use of data in businesses where the types of data were pretty clearly defined in the enterprise systems. Within systems like PeopleSoft, Oracle, like SAP, and all of the big enterprise resource planning type systems, you know, the variations is not very much. But today we've got all that social media stuff coming in, a whole range of different formats and structures, unstructured data coming out of social media like Facebook or Twitter and all those other type of social media. Enormous range of different sorts of data. Text, unstructured. Twitter doesn't even follow rules of grammar or spelling or anything else, but we humans somehow manage to understand it most of the time. And they were looking at those 3 definitional V's and said, but there's also one that IBM created about 3 years ago, V for value. Is it worth bothering to analyse some of this data? Can we get value as an organisation from analysing it? Can we as researchers get value from analysing it? And they came up with 12 V's. We'll have a look at that in a week or so's time. Trouble is, with all this huge explosion of data, as John Easton from IBM pointed out a couple of years ago, at least 80% of all of that big data is of uncertain veracity. In other words, not that 80% is wrong, but there's 80% of data out there which we do not know which is right and which is wrong. Some of it's right, some of it's wrong. And something that would be interesting to you guys in forensics is, you know that one of these devices can be used in evidence in court to prove or disprove that I was or was not at a place where a murder was committed or something, a crime. And you may have seen the report last term, sometime in The Economist, about a woman who had been convicted of murder based on her cell phone cell location. And she was in jail, and then the appeal went through to point out that actually the guys handling that data hadn't actually handled the cell location data terribly well, and actually she wasn't where she was supposed to be, or where they thought she was, and she got off. Now it turns out that only 45% of location data that these things capture and tag your photos with, or anything else, is accurate to around less than 100 meters. Some of it is accurate within location services, GPS, of around about plus or minus 10 meters horizontally and maybe 3–4 meters vertically. Up to 11 or 12%, according to Thinking Near, are showing in a survey or analysis they did last year, 11% of all location services data is more than 60 miles in error. I just use that to make a point. In addition, if you think about enterprise systems, a lot of businesses are now using social media, Twitter feeds, and your Facebook account feeds, and so on, and trying to connect that to their corporate systems, which identify you individually. Now, their corporate systems probably have got most of the data about you correct. But connecting your social media accounts into that is kind of a bit iffy. Traditionally, we would use for identity, proof of identity would be full names plus surname plus date of birth. If your name is, say, John Smith, there are hundreds of John Smiths in the UK, and many of them will share the same precise date of birth of 15th of January 1950. So we have some really interesting questions developing in terms of connectivity. You guys in forensics know that security is kind of important. If you actually look at the traces of levels of extraction of personal identification data out of corporate systems over the last 4 or 5 years, it's getting a bit scary. The last 12 months, not far short of 1 billion sets of identity data were hacked out of corporate systems. Target in the USA, the biggest supermarket chain there, managed to lose 70 million sets of data, including I think 40 or 50 million sets of credit card data in about 10, 12 days. And you know all the Sony hacking that happened over Christmas. You know about many big exploits with some of the games websites where credit card details by the millions, tens of millions were stolen. It's getting worse. And the report that came out this morning from Forrester on governance, risk and compliance is suggesting that the overall problems with governance, risk and security and compliance is only going to continue to grow. They observed something like 20 billion was the cost last year. Not very much really in some respects, given that we spend $3 trillion US a year on ICT. So it's a kind of tiny little amount, but it's still an interestingly large number by most of our own pockets. How many of you have seen Die Hard 4? So that was to do with the connected smarts or meters and security floors. That was made, I don't know, about 6, 7, 8 years ago, wasn't it? I forget exactly when it was made. We have actually been remarkably lucky in the West that something like that hasn't actually happened for real. Given that in security you're looking at capability rather than necessarily intent, the capability for our utility systems to be hacked is still really serious. How many of you are aware of the sort of things that are coming out at the motor shows this year about cars which can self-drive and so on, and the Google car? How many know about the Google car and what it does? As long as that Google car is completely self-contained and does not chatter outside on the by wireless or IP protocols, but is a enclosed, secure environment, no problem in sort of ways. Trouble is, you'll know that top-end cars like Mercedes, like BMW and others are now having beautiful, wonderful high media systems which also have Wi-Fi connectivity and 4G and 3G connectivity out there. And unfortunately, in those cars there is a single data bus for the media, multimedia, and the car's own control systems. And some of these cars are now steer by wire, brake by wire. So there's no physical connection between your steering wheel or your brakes or your accelerator pedals and the things they're controlling. It's little transducers and a piece of wire onto the data bus and it computer controlled. And we know just how unreliable and all the security holes we have in Wi-Fi connectivity, 3G, 4G connectivity, IP, and so on. We know that most of us, when we set up our devices, use quite weak passwords, We mostly are lazy, and if we get to 10 or 12 characters in the password, we think we've done well. We've got uppercase, lowercase, a few numbers, and a few special characters. 10 of those, and our websites tell us that's a good, strong password. Sorry, any password less than 32 characters can be cracked for 50p in 5 minutes using a rainbow table on the website. So if you think you've got WPA, WPA2 protocols with your Wi-Fi, and you've got what you thought was a good strong 10, 12, 15 character multi-WATSITSI, that's safe. Nope. Anybody can sniff that, and you guys in forensics can know how to do that. Did you know that you can just send that login stream off to a website and they rainbow table crack it in 5 minutes for 50p? Now, there are reports already, research reports from universities where last year, using relatively run-of-the-mill technology, they were able to, using one of these smart cars with single data bus and so on, they were able to take over the control, take over the steering, take over the accelerator, take over the brakes. So in terms of capability, we have a serious flaw in the whole system. Because you only have to take over one large lorry per motorway at each end of a motorway, say, in the rush hour, or heavy traffic at times, as a terrorist, and bingo. You've scrambled a nation's highway system for 10, 12 hours, probably. Yes, the automotive companies are aware of the problem. There was a conference last year in December with one of the experts involved in that sort of field, and they're saying, yeah, it's kind of, It's an interesting question. Think about your smart home heating system which connects to your Wi-Fi, through your home Wi-Fi to your phone. How secure is that system? And it might be interesting for forensics guys to go and try it out and see how easy it is to hack into it. And change the settings, change the temperature, switch it on or off. Think of the lovely little Nexus thingy that Apple bought, which controls lights and so on. I forget what the little box is called. But again, if I can control it from an app on my phone, who else can? More particularly, if I can control it and they can get in, break into it, they know when I'm not there. Think on that one. So, a range of rather interesting problem areas about this big data concept. So, the differentiation between the two modules is in the question for the assignment, the focus of your next 12 weeks of research and thinking and analysis. And the nice thing for you guys, at least for BSCIT, I'm sorry for forensics, but in forensics you are stuck with doing that question. Questions of ethics, trust, governance, security, audit and provenance in relation to this sort of big data and Internet of Things. You guys doing BSCIT, you can choose which of those questions you're interested in. This is essentially the downside, the danger side that needs fixing. This side is kind of the upside. How do businesses and enterprises, universities, Rolls-Royce Aerospace, the government, the city councils, Nike, whoever, or your favourite little small, medium-sized organisation, how do we get benefit? What are the consequences in terms of wonderful opportunities? What are the challenges? That could be veracity and other V's. Benefits, whether financial or any other sort of benefit you can think of that information analysis and these sets of data can give us to our company, to our organisation, to our customers, our suppliers. You know, it's very, very wide. And if we are going to do it, enterprise systems also need to know how do we actually manage the way that we do the job, the operations side. So enterprise systems people, or sorry, BSc IT, you can choose that module or that module in relation to the topic you want to do. And you have about 2 or 3 weeks to raise a module change form, get me to sign it, and then get cross-registered from whatever you are on at the moment, whether you're doing this module or that module, and you can switch quite happily, guys, from BSc IT. Now, what we're going to do, there will be 2 parts to the assessment. It's not counted as 2 courseworks, coursework 1, coursework 2. They're 2 parts of a portfolio. The first part, which we will develop over the next 4 weeks or so, 5 weeks-ish, is a poster, an infographic poster. So it's going to provide you the opportunity just to produce this little poster that grabs someone's attention about the precise problem that you are going to write in an article. It is an article which will be written in the Springer LMCS template. I'll give you the template, I'll give you the rules for it, I'll give you an example of what it should look like, and I'll cover exactly what's in the 5-page limit. The 5 pages works out at something like just under 2,500 to 3,000 words. Now, part of the reason for using a template like this is that it gets you used to the idea of something you're going to have to do next year. When you produce reports for your supervisor, for your boss, for your organisation, it is almost certain they will have some house standards as how the information will be presented. And you will basically just have, in the future, have to deal with varying templates. I've got various papers and presentations for conferences out there at the moment. Every single one uses a different template. If I don't do it to the template, it gets bounced and I have to go fix. Some conferences, IEEE particularly, they will say, okay, you've got 12 pages, and if you go over 12 pages, you will be charged $100 per page. And I tripped over that. I fiddled the template slightly one occasion because I was about a quarter of a page over, and so shuffled things around so it looked like it's 12 pages. The editor came back and said, I've reapplied the template properly, and oh dear, it's a half a page longer. Do you want to pay $100, Richard? Nope. Had to then edit it out down to the required level. So the objective is looking at this idea of big data analytics and Internet of Things, and your question for ISA or for ES, then you're trying to find something that you're fairly sure organizations out there, whether big or small, SMEs or large organizations, don't know, but yet you know, and you will demonstrate and persuade them, is actually really important. And then the content is 5 pages. You've got tables at the front page, you've got tables of contents, and you've got all of your bibliography, however long that ends up being, outside of this 5 pages for content. And everybody whose overall article score, total score, is 70% or more, will be collected together into an e-book. Now, I would like a volunteer or two towards the end of the term who, over the summer, will edit it together in the style that we need. And you can find 1 or 2 already there. I've got a few waiting to go up there from last year, but I'm having trouble actually making the open journal system work properly for me at the moment. But I've got several waiting to go. And that will give you some interesting ideas about how this thing works. It gives you an advantage over most students around the world because it will give you the ability on your CV to point out or to identify you have a publication that you've edited in a published e-book up on our website. Anybody who does the editing will also get an additional entry on your CV, edited a collection of academic articles. Very few people out there who are competing with you for jobs will have that sort of extra on their CV. You could be thinking about industry sector, you could think about sizes of organisations. Now, the world is your oyster. And we'll talk a bit more about that in the workshops today. Follow the hints. Now, the poster will be assessed during week 5, almost certainly in here, because it's really a great place. There's plenty of space for you to post all of your posters. And in week 4, we will have a general discussion in the seminar here to work out what the marking criteria are that you're going to agree is the way to differentiate between the oh dear, not very good, okay, pass, pretty good, and wow. And we'll work out maybe a collection of 8 or 10 factors that are of relevance in you guys looking at each other's pieces of work. And you will have 5 or 6 pieces of paper each, and you will be required to assess 5 or 6 of your colleagues' posters. I and 1 or 2 other of my colleagues will also be involved in moderating the marks, and we will make sure that you don't get a group of your cronies to give you 100%. We will be looking at the reasonableness of some of the marking. We'll tend to take out the extremes, probably. If out of the 5 or 6 marks, they all centre around there, great. If most of them are there and there's 1 out there or 1 out there, then I will look at that very, very carefully. And it works quite well. It's also the sort of thing you're going to be doing next year in your work life, of actually peer assessing each other's work and working together. And that's what the workshops are about, is working together to improve each other's work. I and only I, in a sense, will mark the articles. You will not be peer assessing the articles. That's my job. And this last section here, the bottom section, is all about when your final draft is due, when I will schedule you through my office for your final draft reviews, and the date on which you will submit your final version. This active screen. No, it's not working now. No. Yeah, and sometime in the week between 10th of April, 24th of April, you will all come to me and you will all get your articles marked in front of you. So you'll have instant answers to your grade. Okay, it's kind of the provisional answer, and I will also integrate at that point with that the poster mark you've got. So before you leave that session, that week, you will know your grade for the module, subject to moderation and the usual sort of agreement. But that means that before you go home, after Easter, at the end of week 12, you will know how well you have done on this module. Yeah, and this is kind of a further explanation of what we're doing. A little bit more formal, so you can actually read about it. And basically, it's research-based and it's doing. It grows week by week, and a lot of what we're covering in these workshops is about how to do the tasks that are the subject of doing well in this assignment. And you'll notice that from the topic, all about the Internet of Things and big data analytics, we are working now at the leading edge. We're working at stuff that is significant research for conferences last year, for conferences this year. The sort of stuff that conference that I'm co-chairing and chairing over the next, or during this year, we are going to be looking at these sort of questions in considerable depth. The first one is one that I'm probably going to go to in June in Montreal at the basically Operations Research Society in Montreal, one of the big annual ones held in Canada. We'll be looking at a lot of stuff about analysing big data using OR-type techniques and statistics. And then another one that the American conference in Puerto Rico, which is all about, again, big data and analytics and information systems. Again, the same sort of things. These are leading edge topics that you guys are going to be working on. So you will become significant subject expertise, gain significant subject expertise in something that is of incredible demand at the moment. The number of people forecast to have jobs in this field over the next 3, 4, 5 years is growing very fast indeed. So it's going to be enormously valuable to you. The other thing is that a lot of what we do, particularly in here, in the workshops, is working together. Now, there is no formal group work in the sense that you get assessed for group work, because I don't like it at final year level at all. I don't believe it's a fair way to assess you guys, to assess you on a significant amount of group work as group activity. You're going to be assessed individually. But I would encourage you very strongly to do the group activities, working together, reviewing each other's work, thinking about, well, how can we improve our work? How can you improve your work? How can I improve my work? And giving this sort of feedback. In business, when you go out there to get your job, assuming you're not the only expert in your field, in an SME, you know, you're the only IT bod in a 20-person company, that's kind of difficult. But if you're in a bigger organisation where there's 3 or 4 of you working together on projects, then your individual contribution will be assessed by your supervisor each year, and your remuneration, your bonuses will be paid on your individual contribution, but the working together will actually help each other. And so all 4 of you in the team can actually help each other get better results. And so the whole purpose here is it's not a competition, can I get a first and you get a third? It's how can we all get firsts and 2 ones? So it's working together, challenging each other, discussing, sharing ideas, sharing your research. Because in a module like this, the more information you found by research that you build into your bibliographies of cited information, the better quality of analysis you guys are going to do. And for those of you who are new, those from forensics, and those who are new to the university this semester, one of the things you're going to keep coming back to me and saying is, Richard, how many sources do I need in my bibliography? My answer to you, as the IT students know, is, I don't know. What I'm more interested in is a density of citations to support all of what you say is true, or where you got your ideas from. And if we think about most languages and the way we structure our reports and writing, we have things called paragraphs. And paragraphs are basically about an idea, about a concept. So the obvious answer is every paragraph virtually ought to have at least 1 citation to say where that idea came from, where the data came from. But at level 6 at final year, one of the important things you need to think about is that we're not wanting a single line of sources that support a single line idea. Level 6, final year, is about comparing and contrasting and synthesizing ideas. So that kind of implies that if you're doing critical evaluation of a concept, you need multiple sources, multiple perspectives. That kind of means multiple citations to each of the sources that you're drawing together in that evaluation. And then your significant contribution is the way you link those together into a nice idea. This comparison here, these ideas from there, there and there, they come together, and because of my logic of my analysis, this means that here is an interesting conclusion, or an interesting set of connections which leads on to the next paragraph, the next idea. So I'm not counting per se the number of sources in your bibliography in terms of the assessment. I'm looking at the quality of your analysis, the quality of the support for all of this multi-perspective critical analysis. And so, if all of you shared all of your resources, all of your research, and they were relevant to each other's assignments, I have absolutely no problem if I see many of the sources turning up in many of the assignments. That's not plagiarism. That's just helping and doing this sort of thing, working together and helping to improve. But remember, your bibliography is only a list of your cited sources. Typically, what we get in this module, to give you a feel for the sort of levels of research we'd expect, averaging over the last couple of years or so, the final year modules have typically had around about an average of 20 to 25 sources in the bibliography generally. Many of those sources will be cited several times in the actual writing. But what I've seen over the last couple of 3 years while I've been using this approach of research-based learning is that, okay, so the mode is somewhere around 20, 25. There are a very significant proportion, about more than half of all of the assignments, the articles, tend to have somewhere between the mode, the mean, 20, 25, right out to 60, 70, for those who've done really stunning pieces of research. So, a lot of working together, and I'm expecting, every time, if I pose you a question for you to go research, I would kind of expect you to find somewhere around 5 or more sources about that particular topic area that you would probably put straight into your working bibliography. I expect you, as you research from today onwards, to build this document, a working bibliography of every single source you collected in your research that you think might be interesting, that might contribute to the analysis. And then, of course, as you build that up to some enormous length, you will, as you begin to structure your article, as you begin to develop your poster and then your article, as you build the structure of your article and you bring in all of those sources that you research for, then you transfer them from your working bibliography into the active bibliography of your article. Oops, this one here. Feedback. Much of what I'm going to be doing from, not necessarily just this session, because I'm trying to get you started and pointing in the right direction, but much of what we will be doing in following workshops is working together and asking me questions, and I will be giving a lot of feedback to help you improve the data or the research you're doing and the quality of what you're actually producing. And I would hope that by week 3 or 4 you will already have enough information around you about the area that you're going to use for your poster and then for your article, because there should be a tight link between the poster and that should follow into the article. We'll have some time to think about, is my poster going to work? And so I'll give you feedback at that stage as well. Even if we haven't got the full criteria agreed until week 4, you can still bounce ideas off your colleagues here and off me as to, is this a really good looking poster? Is it going to grab my ideas and so on? So to task 1. Working with someone next to you have a look at that draft proposed outline of your assignment, which I will turn into proper formal assignment specs over the weekend. But based around those two topics, those two sets of questions, suitable for ISA or for ES. So I would suggest you work together in enterprise systems or ISA pairs. Think about activity 1, please. And I'll give you 10 minutes to do that. So you go to the assessments folder and you will find that outline of the assignment sitting up there waiting for you. And then ask those questions of yourselves. So basically what you need to do is think about task 1, task activity 2, activity 3 and so on. Work out how to manage your time for the next half hour, folks. Okay? Because that's what you're going to be doing jointly to develop your ideas, develop your approach to solving this little problem. And if you want to ask me questions, you're free to do so from now on.